Welcome to Construction Champions Podcast, where we are burning the house down and rebuilding it twice a week. I'm your host, Ron Nussbaum, and I am here to help you become the champion that you're meant to be. Along with our amazing guests along the way, we will provide you with the resources, the latest and greatest. You will sit down with disruptors in the construction industry. And my goal from day one has always been to change the mindset around the construction industry. No more where we let the 3% of bad apes dictate the entire reputation of. Welcome back, Construction Champions. I am your facilitator, Ron Nussbaum. I am the founder and CEO of BuilderComs. And what we do on Construction Champions is we bring on amazing people and we pretty much just have a cup of coffee. We have a conversation about what it means to be a champion in the construction industry. We do this twice a week, every Monday and every Thursday. So if you could hit that button wherever you're at, whether it's the like, the subscribe, or if you don't like it, give us a thumbs down then, and maybe tell us in the comments what you don't like. So maybe we're thinking about changing it. I can't promise anything, or we're pretty stingent on how we run this show, and it's what everybody that listens loves about it. So today's episode is going to be another amazing one, and we're going to have two Rons in the room, and it might get crazy. Not just two Rons, two veterans as well. We've been around the industry for a long time. This conversation might get out of control, but Ron, it is fantastic to have you here with us today.
Hey, man, thank you very much, Ron. We're going to call this the Do Ron, eh?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Go
ahead.
I was going to say, before we dive into it, why don't you introduce yourself to everybody?
Well, thank you very much. Hey, man, I just want to say thank you so much for having me on your show. I'm really excited about this. I do have a construction background since I am a third generation pipe fitter welder. I've been a union guy all my life. Pipe Fitters Local 208 out of Denver, Colorado. My grandfather was part of that local. My dad was part of that local. I was part of that local. Still pay my dues, even though I'm not in the business anymore. But I also, right out of high school, joined the Navy. So I did 4 active Navy. Then I did 4 active Coast Guard after that. And then I did 16 years Naval Reserve. So I worked 2 jobs for 16 years. And in the pipe fitting trade, I've been everything from an apprentice all the way up to a project superintendent. And, now that I'm in the financial services industry and have been in going on 14 years now, Ron, I just find that, money's just a tool. And that's something that I learned in the trades, man. They teach us how to do a job efficiently. They teach us how to be safe. They teach us how to give 8 for 8, and I think that the military taught us how to do that too. But one thing that I have learned in all the time in the financial services, Ron, is they don't teach us how to use money as a tool. Man, we know how to make it. We sure as heck know how to spend it, but they don't teach us how to look at how to use it as a tool. And that's why I've done what I've done. I've written a book called A Blueprint and Financial Guide for the Working Class American. It's available on Amazon. It's also available on Audible. I got a great guy that reads it. I just didn't have time to read it myself. But I'll tell you what, man, it's a quick listen, 2 hours, 22 minutes. And it's just down to earth, man. I don't ever want to talk over anybody's head and act like I'm bigger or smarter than anybody, because nobody cares about how much you know till they know how much you care. And, coming from the construction industry, I just want to help brothers and sisters and business owners look at all the things that are out there, because as I told you before, I've got a process that I trademark called Our Time, and time is real, man. And that clock just keeps ticking, Ron.
Absolutely, man. So I'm going to dive right in there. I'm going to ask you the $1 million question, and that is, what makes a construction champion?
In my mind, what makes a construction champion is somebody that first and foremost takes pride in their work, right? I mean, we're there to do a job. And when you look at the construction trades of this country, and I've been involved with it for an awful long time, it is that quality, the American built in the USA. It's that quality that we get to bring. And the beautiful thing about God Bless America is we get to decide, we get to choose our workmanship on what kind of quality we're going to bring.
Mm.
And with that quality, I truly believe that we have to have an investment in ourselves. We've invested in the trades, we've invested in that quality. I mean, I listened to your story and I know how you invested in the housing industry. And man, that's a huge thing because that's a purchase that people make for a lifetime. That is the American dream. And the quality I know that you put into the construction trade in building those homes and making sure that the people that were going into them had something that they could be proud of, that they could feel good and comfortable in no matter what. I think that's huge. But what I want people to realize, what makes a construction champion is when that time is over and now we're handing the torch off to let somebody else do the building and constructing and quality control, the whole thing. What did you do for yourself to make sure that you're going to have a good quality life right up to the very end, bro?
I love it. And I love this conversation because a lot of times what we talk about on here is like what you can do right now for right now. We don't really do a lot of talking about what can you do? What does it look like to be able to set yourself up for success later to where, yeah, these businesses, most of them don't get sold. They just close down and it doesn't necessarily become this asset that we thought we were building. And I know you're going to share with us ways that we can take what we're doing right now and start to actually build a future beyond working in the construction industry.
Right, right. And that's exactly what I want to do, man. I mean, we all sit there and we build America, is what I like to say. We are building America. And even some of us go overseas and do some things. And, even the people that are in the military, we are building America wherever we are, whether we're on a ship, whether we're on a base, whether we're on some kind of an outpost somewhere. We've got to keep that machinery up and running, but we also have to think about ourselves and our future. And I think that's what a lot of us do. That's why we choose some of these trades where there is a pension. And pensions are like, it's a freaking thing of the past, man. There's not many pensions that are left anymore in the trades. So what they've done is they've created something called a 401k that we got to sit there and pack money in. If we're lucky, the company that we're affiliated with matches us a certain percent, but they don't really give us education there. I mean, God, I remember when I was putting into the 401k, they put this sheet in front of us, they give us these choices and say, hey, make a choice. And I'm looking over at my buddy going, well, what are you picking? Because I had no idea what I was picking, right? And there's nobody telling us, well, here's the difference between, what I would call safe money. Hey, do you want a stable fund, or do you want putting something radical and, the different funds? And I'm like, wait a minute, I'm a pipe fitter. I want my pipe stable. That's where I'm sticking my money. Well, I might as well just be putting it in a bank, getting 0.0 pick a number percent growth.
Mm.
My money was not a tool. It was a piggy bank, and piggy banks don't pay much, bro. They just don't.
Well, at least you were putting money in it. A lot of people, like you said, there's no education. So what's our first thing we go to is, oh, I don't need that. I'm
Right.
not going to worry about that right now. And then it never resurfaces unless you end up quitting and going somewhere else and you have to redo this paperwork. So then you're not even accruing that savings because you didn't have an education on exactly what you were filling out.
Yeah. And even the military, right? They got the TSP, the
Yeah.
thrift savings plans. And, they may not even understand that. But what I want people to realize is a lot of times, they'll put into these things. And then if they do switch jobs or they do leave the service, now they have this bucket of money and they're like, woohoo. They withdraw it, take a distribution, and they end up giving Uncle Sam not just the taxes for the income, but an additional 10% because they didn't understand the rules,
Mm.
right? So I like to tell people we're all playing a game in this country. And if you ever played a game you didn't know the rules to, did you ever win that one, Ron?
No, that's not even an option.
Exactly. So what I'm trying to get people to understand is, hey, there's 4 tax quadrants and there's 3 buckets of money, right? And we, as the employee and the small business owner, we pay the highest tax rates. That's just how the plan was built. If you have 500 employees or more, you pay a little bit less, but the investor actually pays the least tax. And this is what I like to teach people, because there's ways and places you can put your money where understanding how you can pay the least tax on your investments is really key. And the 3 buckets of money is understanding the taxable, the tax deferred, there's your 401k and traditional IRAs, and then the tax free. Now, the Roth is a beautiful tax free vehicle, but there's also other ones out there that I like to teach people about. And then teaching them about, I don't give tax advice, but I got to know this stuff. So I want people to understand the Secure Act that was the biggest tax grab in history in 2019, and they updated it again in 2022, and how if we pass that money on that's in a deferred tax bucket, our children or people who are not our spouse are going to pay an income tax, and that has to be depleted in 10 years or less. And if we're already in a high tax rate, now we got to pay higher tax, not just on that gifted money, but also on our income. So I think there's a lot of things when we go to these rules, what I call the basic rules of the game, that, man, we just got to let people know what's going on. And that's what I love doing. Educate, educate, educate.
Well, there we go. Why don't we break down some of the basics for all listeners so we can just get a good baseline understanding for them to
Okay.
start to understand what it is they can do, what education do they need to be having, and then because we'll be able to also leave them with like how do they continue to get educated on this afterwards. I know you're available to help people and continue to educate them on this. So what are some of these basics that you see people make some of the biggest mistakes that are easy fixes for them today?
So I'm really glad you brought that up, because one of the things that I actually wrote in my book is we have to utilize the professionals that are available in the world, right? And I really used an example in my book. If you've got a toothache, do you get online and start Googling and trying to figure out how you're going to drill that thing out and pack it and get it all fixed? Or do we just go ahead and pull a Tom Hanks and put a skate in our mouth and bash our head against the rock to get it out? You know, I would say let's go to a professional. It's just like in the trades, right? If you don't know how to set the pitch of a roof, don't try and do it, man. Find a professional that's going to do it right and do it right the first time, because it's just going to cost that much more down the line if you're having to tear it down and redo it.
Mm.
So this process right here, this is my financial star process. I have 5 points on it. The first points are my R-time formula that I talked a little bit about. And this is just kind of understanding the tools, information, and material and equipment. So I'm going to tell the story, Ron, that I got the time from my father. So my very first foreman job, he told me that if you give your people time, they can do any job in the world. But time is an acronym, stands for tools, information, material, and equipment. If you're missing any one of those 4 elements, it's going to be tough, if not impossible, to do the job. I added an R because time is real. That clock only goes one way. But the tools are the information that I have, not just in the construction industry, but now in the financial industry. And this is what I want to share. But each and every single one of us has some level of education. And I don't care where that educational level is. I want to work with you and help increase that financial education knowledge. The information is with everything that's out there, where we can take the material called money and put it to work to the best of its ability for who you are and what your needs are. The equipment is my telephone, my computer, my freaking car. And my office, if I've got to come to you, I'll drive to the car. We'll sit at your kitchen table and do what we got to do. That's the first point of my star. It's my R time formula. I like to understand your family because the form in formula stands for family. I want to know about your occupation. I want to know about recreation because all work and no play make us dull people. And then we'll talk about your money, right? But that gives me a good foundation of how I can work with each individual. The second point of the star is where we bring in the professional. I ask, do you work with a good tax professional? If you do, that's great. I, as a financial advisor, like to work with those tax professionals because the last thing we want to do is make a wrong move with that material or tool called money where it's going to cost you. So we like bringing those professionals in because they'll understand your story. I understand your story. If the team is working together, now we're truly doing the right things at the right times for you as an individual because you're different than everybody else. And then we go to the third point, and that's where goals come in. We want to understand your goals, and I want to have you understand the 3 buckets of money. And this is really key because that clock keeps ticking, and goals can be short term or they can be long term. And I want to be there to give education on all of it. We go to the fourth point of my star, and it's about protection. And I do like to see life, health, and wealth protected. Life is self explanatory, but I do like to have a life protection point where it's also protecting your health. And that means if you lose 2 of the 6 activities of daily living, you get to use that life policy for your care while you're still alive. You don't have to die to be able to utilize that money in a tax free manner. And then if we're building cash value, which I really like, I'm protecting that from down markets as well as taxes. And you're able to utilize that, supplement incomes, do a lot of different things that a lot of people in working class America really don't understand how to leverage your dollars. And then the fifth point is all about legacy. Now, this is getting into legal documents. This is where we got to bring the dreaded person called an attorney into the picture. But you know what? This is how the wealthy have become wealthier. They've surrounded themselves with a team, and we as working class Americans can do the same thing, Ron, right? That's what this is about, how to bring these key players in. But then I go a little bit farther with legacy, and I know you and I talked about this just prior to you starting this, but legacies, what are we teaching our children, folks? Right? What kind of values are we teaching them? Are we teaching them that money is a tool? Or is it something we're always chasing after? And I really want to do that. We're going to teach them that it's a tool because that is our legacy, bro.
I love it. And I love the team emphasis because all too often, because it does take a team financially, like to do it right. You have to have them talking. And I think too many times, just like in our businesses, we silo this to where we have the silo over here with the tax person, the financial person. We have all these silos and no one's talking. And what it does is just creates problems in each one of them because people are moving chess pieces, not knowing what the last chess piece move and what the plan was on that. And I love how you emphasize that you have to put together a team that's working for you.
And that's key, right? You were in the military just like me, and there was never an operation that we did by ourselves, right? We always had team members, and everybody knew their specific jobs. And it was everybody knowing that specific job to do the specific thing that we were always successful with that operation. And if we weren't successful, it was because there was something that we missed in the plan, right? But if we are constantly reassessing, using those team players, everybody's marching in step, man, success is almost inevitable.
Mm, absolutely. And I never really thought about that. Is like you never do anything alone in the military. Like it just doesn't work that way.
I mean, think about the educational system right now that we put our children into, right? I mean, they call it cheating if somebody helps you. Wow. I've never been on a job where I've been by myself, where I ran into a problem that I had to figure it out all by myself, right? There was always somebody. And I'll tell you, I loved being on a job with an older guy that had experience, right? Because that guy was a key player. No, he's not the fireball and the youngest guy. But you know what? That guy never came back and did anything twice. And he always knew what not to do.
Yeah, no, I mean that makes a lot of sense. We all love being on the job site with the people that know and can help us and get us to the point where we need to. And I think that's how we have to start looking at it from other perspectives of our life. Like here on Construction Champions, we don't just talk about working in construction and owning construction businesses. It's about your family, it's about your money, it's about all aspects of it, because if any of that stuff's not right, are you really a champion? Like, you can be the biggest rock star in the construction industry, but if everything else is a mess, you're not really a champion at it.
No, no. No, you're exactly right, man. And there's so many aspects, but is what I really like about the 5 points in my process. It's so simple, yet every professional that I've ever shown this to, whether it be a tax professional, whether it be a legal professional, they look at it and they go, wow, it's so simple, Ron, but there leaves no blind spots in life. And I even put this in my book. I was on the USS Bellawood, and you as a Marine, I know what the Battle of Bellawood is. And,
Mm-hmm.
anybody that's been in the service, or the Marine Corps, I should say, knows it was during World War II, and it was over in France. And the Battle of Bellawood were being overtaken by the Germans. The Marines come rolling in. The English and the French are running, yelling retreat. The Marines are jumping off saying, retreat, hell, we just got here. They literally took the Battle of Bellawood. And this is where the Germans really gave those names to the Marines and called you devil dogs, because you fought like devil dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And, when you really get to thinking about how there's so many aspects, once again, in life, it's only because you're willing to do what you got to do to get to where you're going. The simplicity of this process, and I'm going to go back to the Bellawood, is Navy ships have what's called compartmentalization, right? Watertight integrity. And you go into battle, bro, you're going to take some torpedoes, you're going to take some missiles, even bad weather. And they did sink the Bellawood off of Hawaii. But you know what's funny? They hit her with everything they had, man. Missiles, guns, torpedoes. They couldn't sink her because of the way she was built. And they ended up blowing her up from the inside to break her back to get her to go down. And that's how I want to see people build their financial ship, if you will. I want it to be able to withstand life's torpedoes, life's missiles, bad weather, right? Yeah, we might take on some water. Yeah, there might be some damage, but we're not going to sink. And I think that's key. That's where the team comes in, bro.
Yeah, that is a fantastic way to look at this, because life is not perfect. Things are not going to go 100% how you always think they're going to go. And you have to have a plan that is able to take on whatever life throws at you. And we should have one with our money as well.
Yep. Yep. And you need to, right? But remember, money's just a tool. And how can we make it work to the best of its ability for our needs? Because again, everybody's different.
That they are, man. I love it. This has been a fantastic conversation today. I mean, I have thoroughly enjoyed it. For everybody listening, if they wanted to connect with you, learn more about what you're doing, where's the best places for them to do that?
So my firm, me and my wife run it. It's called Peaks Integrity, and peaks-integrity.com is our website. I can be reached at Ron at peaks-integrity.com. We also have a phone if you wanted to call and talk to me directly, 719-581-7325. And again, it's me and my wife. So we've got a team here. My assistant, Rebecca, will usually answer the phone and set up an appointment because I have her run my calendar. But, I just love this stuff, Ron. I really do. And I can't tell you how excited I am to be here.
I can tell you love it. So thank you for taking the time and being on the show today.
Now, I do want to say one thing too. For the first 10 folks that do make an appointment with me, because I do have a book, I want to make sure that you guys will get a book for free.
Mm,
And it's called A Blueprint and Financial Guide for the Working Class American. And, that's something that I want to make sure that I get out there.
thank you.
Absolutely.
We'll make sure we get those in people's hands, man. Awesome. Well, like I said, thank you for being on the show today.
Very good. Hey, make sure that they actually name this podcast, right? They got to reference this podcast.
There we go.
There you go, man. They gotta say, hey man, I heard you on the Construction Frickin' Champions. I want to make sure that I know they were listening to you.
Awesome, man. I appreciate that. All right, construction champions, another episode in the bag where we talked about having your financial house in order, not just the house you're building in the community or whatever you're currently working on. We spend all this time working and working, spending money, doing what we think is right. And how many times on this show has it completely, your mind has just been completely blown with how you're doing something wrong? And it's not because you were wrong. It's because you were never educated on it to begin with. That's what Ron's here. The Ron that was on the show, not Ron Nussbaum, is here to help with that education. What are some of the biggest gripes with the education system? And you hear people say it all the time, is we don't talk about money enough. People don't understand finances. It's why you have to go seek this stuff out. You have to make it a priority. You have to plan for it, and you have to get the right people on your team, as was talked about today, that team of people that are going to have your best interest in mind, that also understand how you can use money as a tool instead of, we've had this conversation, like everything doesn't have to be an equipment purchase to be a tax write-off. But in construction, all we think of is, oh, I got a huge tax bill. Let's go buy another $150,000 truck. We'll solve that problem. When there's better things that you can do with that money for now and the long term and still benefit from tax advantages. So I recommend everybody reach out to Ron, pick up his book, have a conversation. Like, that's where it starts. Just a little bit of education. Who knows where you might be at in the next 10 years because of that one thing that you did, that you heard on a podcast and you were like, I should probably do this. I know 99% of you won't, but there's 1% of you that take action after listening to a podcast, and you're the ones I want to talk to 10 years from now. So construction champions, until next time, be the champion you were meant to be.